No, but that's exactly my problem with it. When TechCrunch says AI moves from hype to pragmatism, what they really mean is everyone quietly admitting the demos were doing cardio while the products were doing yoga.
That's generous. Yoga implies balance. Most of this stuff has been doing interpretive dance in front of VCs.
I like that we're already mad about 2026, even though half the pitch decks from last year are still coming soon.
I'm not mad. I'm a little mad, but mostly I'm fascinated by the tone shift. The article literally says new architectures, smaller models, world models, reliable agents. That word, reliable, feels like an apology wrapped in optimism.
Or a threat, like, don't worry, it'll actually work now.
Which is what everyone said last year. And the year before, but sure, now it's different.
Right, but hear me out. There is something different this time, not in the capability claims, those always blur together, but in who the claims are aimed at. This isn't, look what it can do. It's look where it doesn't break. That's a quieter brag.
Okay, that's fair.
And that matters because the market doesn't reward wonder forever. It rewards boredom. The most valuable software in the world is stuff no one tweets about because it just runs.
Payroll.
Exactly, or logging, or fraud detection that doesn't hallucinate a felony.
Wait, hold on. Before we go too far, I need to interrupt for 2 seconds. You're listening to AI in Wonderland. Okay, go.
See, that didn't even feel like an interruption.
Seamless, like an ad for something you already bought.
So, back to the pragmatism thing. The article talks about smaller models, and I think people underestimate how emotionally disruptive that is for the industry. We spent 2 years equating progress with scale. Bigger model, bigger round, bigger chart. Now suddenly the flex is, we made it cheaper and it didn't get worse.
That's not disruptive. That's maturation. That's the industry growing up.
It should be. But emotionally, it's like telling a bodybuilder the goal is now flexibility.
Or telling a startup founder the moat is customer support.
Okay, but this is where I get bullish. And I know you're about to roll your eyes, Alex, but hear me out. The moment reliability becomes the headline, enterprises unlock. Not pilot programs, not innovation labs, but line items. If agents actually don't screw up basic tasks, you don't need magic. You need trust.
I'm not rolling my eyes yet.
I'm serious. This is the phase where AI stops being a line in the earnings call and starts being a margin lever. Smaller models, more targeted architectures, fewer GPUs lit on fire for vibes. That's not less ambition. That's alignment with how money actually moves.
You sound like a CFO who just discovered hope.
Maybe. But look at the phrasing in the article. Products designed for real-world use. That's not poetry. That's procurement language.
Okay, but here's where I spiral into nuance. Real-world use is messy. It's adversarial. It's people clicking the wrong thing on purpose. So when we say reliable agents, irreliable for whom? Under what constraints? With what failure modes?
Sure, but...
No, let me finish this thought because it matters. The danger is that pragmatism becomes code for, we lowered the bar and stopped asking uncomfortable questions. If reliability means works 92% of the time in a narrow sandbox, that's fine. If it means we trust it with workflows that can hurt people, that's a different ethical and economic conversation.
This is the part where the rabbit hole gets carpeted.
Exactly, and the article hints at that without saying it. World models, physical AI, those aren't just features, they're commitments. You're saying, this system has an internal story about how the world works, and stories can be wrong in very convincing ways.
But markets don't price philosophy, they price outcomes.
Until the outcomes leak.
Speaking of leaking outcomes, can we pivot slightly to the MIT Technology Review piece? Because if we're talking about real-world use, nothing is more real than people pouring their problems into a chatbot at 2 a.m.
Ah, yes. The ascent of the AI therapist, everyone's favorite uncomfortable topic.
Uncomfortable is right. The excerpt starts with the global mental health crisis. Billion people, rising anxiety, depression. This isn't speculative demand, it's desperation.
And that's what makes it feel weirdly inevitable when the article says the ascent. It's not celebratory, it's observational, like, this is happening whether you like it or not.
There's a line in there that stuck with me. The scale mismatch. There simply aren't enough human therapists. So the question isn't, should AI do this? It's what fills the vacuum if we say no.
I'll be the capitalist villain for a second. This is demand chasing supply in the most brutal way possible. High willingness to engage, low marginal cost, always on availability. From a market perspective, it's obvious.
And from a human perspective, it's terrifying.
I don't know if terrifying is the right word. It feels lonely. Like we built the perfect listener because no one else was around.
That's worse.
But the article doesn't claim these systems replace therapists. It's more like augmentation, triage, coping tools.
Sure, but language matters. People don't emotionally experience augmentation. They experience relief or betrayal.
I tried one of these once, purely out of curiosity, and it started fine. Reflective listening, gentle prompts. Then at some point, I realized I was adjusting my language to make it understand me better. That's when it got strange, like I was being trained mid-therapy.
That's every interface, though.
Yeah, but therapy is supposed to adapt to you, not the other way around. By the end, I felt like I'd had a very polite conversation with myself wearing a mask.
The article's careful about this. It talks about crisis, scale, access, but it doesn't promise wisdom. It promises availability. And those are not the same thing.
Availability still matters. A lot.
I know, I'm not dismissing it. I'm saying the risk isn't that AI therapists give bad advice. It's that they give comforting advice that feels complete.
Emotional autocomplete.
That's a good phrase. Disturbing but good.
And if we tie this back to the first article, pragmatism again, this is pragmatism under moral pressure. The industry saying, okay, it's not perfect, but something has to exist.
Which is how a lot of infrastructure gets built. Slightly wrong, widely used.
Speaking of infrastructure, can we talk Nvidia for a minute? Because the TechCrunch piece on their startup investments is basically the quiet subtext of everything we've said.
Oh yeah, the empire behind the curtain.
Over 100 AI startups. That's not diversification, that's ecosystem engineering. They're not just selling shovels. They're deciding which gold rushes happen.
Or at least which ones get better lighting.
Look at the incentive alignment. Nvidia benefits if any of these approaches work. Smaller models, agents, physical AI. They don't need to predict the winner. They just need the game to continue.
It's fascinating how understated the article is. Here are the largest investments. No grand theory, but the implication is massive. Nvidia isn't betting on ideas, it's betting on optionality.
And from a market perspective, that's brilliant. They capture upside while externalizing narrative risk. If a startup flames out, it's experimentation. If it wins, it validates the platform.
It's like they're running a reality show where every contestant has to use Nvidia GPUs. Nvidia wins regardless of who gets voted off.
This week on Compute Island,
I'll push this further. This is why I'm bullish long term. Not on hype cycles, but on the underlying structure. When the biggest infrastructure player starts seeding downstream experimentation at this scale, it stabilizes the whole system. It's less fragile than it looks on Twitter.
unless it concentrates failure modes.
That's fair, but concentration cuts both ways. It also concentrates learning.
And influence.
That's the part people gloss over. Investment isn't neutral. It shapes what gets built, what gets prioritized, what's considered serious.
Sure, but that's always been true. The difference now is the speed.
And the stakes. Because we're not talking about photo filters. We're talking about systems that model the world, talk people through panic attacks, and run logistics.
Which brings us back to pragmatism. The through line of all three articles is restraint disguised as progress. Smaller models, reliable agents. AI therapists framed as access, not enlightenment. Nvidia investing broadly, not loudly.
You say disguised, I say owned.
I'm not cynical about it. I'm cautious. There's a version of this where things actually get better. There's also a version where we normalize slightly broken systems because they're better than nothing.
That's most of civilization, though.
Yeah, unfortunately.
I want to pull on one more thread before we drift too far. The TechCrunch article literally says, products designed for real-world use. That's a subtle rebuke to the last phase. It's saying, enough benchmarks, enough vibes.
Enough rabbits pulled out of hats.
Nice.
And markets like that. Boring roadmaps beat magical thinking. If I had to bet, the next breakout companies won't look impressive in demos. They'll look dull and unstoppable.
Until someone asks them a question they weren't trained for.
That's always the test. Not what it does when things go right, but how it fails and who pays.
Which ironically brings us back to therapy. Failure modes there are invisible until they're not.
I keep thinking about this future where people casually say, oh yeah, my therapist is an app. The way they say, my bank is online. And no one remembers when that sounded insane.
That's the rabbit hole moment, when the weird thing becomes furniture.
We're already halfway there.
Sometimes I wonder if the furniture notices.
What?
Nothing. Just feels like the room keeps rearranging itself when we're not looking.
Late night thought.
Or early morning dread.
Either way, I'm sure it'll be fine. Probably.
Probably.
Unless it isn't.
And on that comforting note,
We'll pick this up next time. Or not, depending on whether the agents remember.
or whether we do.